definitely not shut up and dribble.
The champ is here. I must be the greatest. The champ is here.
I'm going to continue to stand with the people.
The champ is here.
I will not lose.
I'm a bad man. I shook up the world.
Yes, welcome. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with we. My name is EJ, and I got my man.
Mate.
Yes, he is the DB of the show, and we are Black in Sports, giving a voice to the culture that won't shut up and dribble. Here interviewing the best professionals in the game and in the boardroom. And hey, we're here covering it all, laughing at it all, while providing a platform to be heard. So you know what we do, all of our regular listeners. It's time to welcome our guest for today. Now, she sits in the intersection between academia, sports business, and innovation. Data, strategy, finance. She's covered it all. Also an award-winning professor and researcher with top honors like Transcendent, Teachers Award. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. And if nothing else, we're going to learn something today because class is in session. All right, so please, she serves as the inaugural faculty director of the Business and Sports Entertainment Program there at Georgia Tech University. Please, let's clap it up for Dr. Jacqueline Garner. Yes.
Hey, go Jackets.
And if they don't know, it's can we call you Dr. JG or just JG? Do you want to just jump into that story where that name came from?
JG's good.
Okay,
JG's
go ahead,
good.
JG. Well, tell
I
us.
don't need any titles. That's what people call me, JG.
I love it. So before we get into the origin story of that, we always start our show with a shoot your shot moment. So a shoot your shot moment where you bet on yourself. You either learned a lesson or you won something big, but it could have been any time where you shot your shot and bet on yourself.
So I would say it was when I was young. I went to a school in Birmingham, Alabama, that happened to have an honors program where you could declare a major. And this was at a time where young women didn't do majors in math and science, but I declared a major in math and science. And many of my friends, my female friends who didn't declare that major, were trying to get me to do maybe humanities or something like that. And so I went to my father. I was a daddy's girl. I was a mama's girl too, but I was definitely a daddy's girl. And I asked him, I said, do you think I should switch my major? So I had declared my major, and then I was talking to my daddy about what I should do. I said, do you think I should change it to humanities? And he was like, why would you do that? You don't even like that. He said, this was the best advice I ever got. He said, all your friends, he said, they love you. They want to be in the same classes with you. They don't mean you any harm. But he said, when you take advice from somebody, make sure you take advice from someone who knows you. I know you. You're good at math. I suggest you stick with that.
There it is.
Talk about shooting your shot, because in those days in the state of Alabama, at my age, right, that was just unusual, right? It was a little bit unusual, and it's what I liked. And, I needed a little bit of encouragement from someone who loved me. And that's what I got.
There it is. MH?
Yeah, I love that the roles of a father. That's really cool. So can you tell us a little bit about the origin story of JG? I'm very interested in hearing this.
Of how JG started?
Yes, ma'am.
So my name is Jacqueline. And when I was really young, I went by Jackie, but I didn't care for Jackie because I'm small. I'm a small person, and I felt like it was more diminutive, right? Oh. So I always insisted that people call me Jacqueline. But, that's a long name, right? It's 3 syllables. So I was a professor at Drexel in Philly. Go Philly, go Birds. I loved my time in Philly. I still miss Philly. I go to Philly every year, by the way. But when I was in Philly, I started just signing my emails with my initials. Just because Jacqueline's a long name.
Right.
Well, people in Philly are like, okay, 3-syllable names is too much, right? We need a nickname for you. And that's where JG was launched, and it has stuck. And I even walk into conversations now where people are like, have you asked JG what she thinks? Like, everybody calls me JG. And I love it. I just love it. I love it.
I love it. That's good.
Shout out to Philly.
So, and it's perfect for like sports, and it's a quick little name, and it kind of rhymes a little bit. It's great. Yeah.
So JG, talk to me about your relationship with sports and where that started, your love for it.
Oh, well, this is great. So I grew up in the state of Alabama, and I have no sisters, and in my generation, I have no female cousins.
Oh, okay.
I grew up with all young men and boys, right? And they all loved football. I mean, growing up in the SEC, Alabama, Auburn, right? Football. Everybody loved football. And my dad had gone to the University of Alabama. He did not graduate, right? Because he had some financial difficulties, like many people do, but he went to Alabama. And in those days, you could go to Alabama games for not a lot of money. And so we went to some Alabama games, when I was growing up. It didn't cost what it costs now, even inflation adjusted, And of course, network TV was all we had. We didn't have the ESPNs and stuff. So we would either go to a game or we would watch it on TV. And I loved the game. I loved it. But I didn't completely understand I didn't play football, right? I didn't understand everything, but I knew who the position, the skill position players were: quarterback, running back. Basically, I thought I knew that. And I could follow the game in terms of scoring.
Right.
So in those days, Alabama ran what's called a wishbone offense. Okay,
there you go.
Oh, yeah, wishbone offense. So they always talked about it on TV, right, and on the radio, if we would listen to it on the radio. But, we were watching TV, or if we went to the ball game down in Tuscaloosa. And so I asked my father one day, I was probably, 10, what do they mean by wishbone? I don't understand what they mean. And, of course, he knew me, right? And he said, do you really want to understand? I'm like, well, yeah, I'm asking. What do you mean? Do I really want to understand? I'm asking. And he said, well, you're a really good little memorizer. You're going to memorize the answer, and you're not going to understand what it means because you don't play football. In those days, girls never played football, right? And he said, if you really want to know, I need you to start understanding the X's and O's of the game.
Oh, wow. Let's go.
So we started. He asked me, of course, I was a math person. He was like, treat this like a math problem. So, write the X's and the O's and so forth. That's when I really started understanding defenses.
Okay.
But the funniest thing was, I thought I knew who the wide receivers were, right? And so there was a tight end at Alabama. Oh, what was his name? Oh, help me out. He went on to play in the NFL, and then he became the general manager at the Baltimore Ravens.
Oh, Ozzie.
It was Ozzie Newsome. Okay.
Yep.
Ozzie Newsome was a tight end for Alabama back in the day.
Yep.
And of course, tight ends have always caught the ball. They don't just block, right?
Right. Break it down.
So I thought Ozzie, because he caught the ball and he was tall. I'm 10. I'm a 10-year-old little girl. I thought Ozzie Newsome was a wide receiver. So I told my father, Ozzie Newsome is a wide receiver. He said, no. He's not a wide receiver. I said, no. He's tall and he runs and he catches the ball. And then my father said, look at your X's and O's. Where is Ozzie? And of course I said, well, he's next to the tackle. And he said, why do you think they call him a tight end? He's tight. And then why do you think they call the wide receivers a wide out? it changed my life as a 10-year-old. I was like, I got it. I got it. And then he started teaching me about, linebackers and fourth. In those days, it was more 4-3 versus 3-4. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Because you had nose tackles that were the size of like a tank, right? But then because I was so interested in that, I started going, oh, then Nick Saban came to Alabama, and his, when he first came, he ran a 3-4 and sometimes a 4-3, right? And then he moved to nickel and dime defenses.
Yeah.
Right. And I started learning about that. And so I've always been interested in the X's and O's. I mean, I'm not a coach. I'm definitely not a coach. I can't tell you what, but when I watch a game, I watch it as that 10-year-old little girl who understood what a tight end versus a wide receiver was.
That's amazing. That's so amazing. That's good stuff.
It just, and I think what's really remarkable about my daddy, God rest his soul, he passed away when I was 20. He knew I would love it because he knew me.
I love that.
And I also like the stories. I like the stories about the players and their struggles, and because I've had struggles. We've all had struggles. And I enjoy listening to those and understanding about players. I love learning about, I was telling one of my colleagues at Georgia Tech, because I'm working on a research paper, and she's not a sports person, but she knows a little bit, and I mentioned Jalen Hurts, and she goes, oh, I've heard of him because he plays for the Eagles. I have some family members that are Eagles fans. And I was talking about athletic quarterbacks, because in this one research paper, I've got all of this data on fantasy sports, and we're trying to figure out, is it true that you should stack your quarterback with your wide receiver to win, right? And so I was explaining to her about athletic quarterbacks. She goes, aren't they all athletic? I said, yeah, they are. Yeah, this is no shade, but I said, when we talk about an athletic quarterback, somebody like Jalen Hurts is considered athletic because he can run. Whereas somebody like Tom Brady, I said, don't get me wrong. It's not that he's not athletic.
All right.
Of course he's athletic. He's the GOAT, but he's not a runner.
More of a pocket. Yeah.
He's a pocket. He stands in there like a soldier, and, and I said, because his football IQ is so huge, he just stands there like a soldier and throws a ball to a tight end, for goodness sake. That's what he does.
This is awesome.
Yeah. So that was the beginning of my intro into sports. I just, I didn't play sports, but, even like when I watch a tennis match, I'm like, her backhand's really good, right? That's how I think about things, is I'm analytical. And, I went to school. I got a degree in finance. I worked in industry for about 10 years, always knowing I wanted to be in academia, but I didn't think a female from Alabama in academia would do well unless I had a little street cred. So that's why I worked in industry, right? And I knew intuitively, and I have a Southern accent, and I'm small, right? People make judgments. I get it. People make judgments about your appearance and your size and your accent and all of that. And that's another thing. People used to tell me in industry, you need to lose your Southern accent. Like, I'm not losing my Southern. If I naturally lose it from moving, but I'm not going to deliberately suppress who I am. This is who I am. And if you don't like it, that's okay. But that's why, part of the reason I worked in industry is I wanted to get a little street cred. So then when I started teaching, I could say, well, this is what's up. Right.
Yeah. So you have, application, right? From
Exactly.
education.
Right.
So yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
So MH, you can jump back into some background stuff, but because we had the efficient X and O's, I want to jump right into some of the career stuff, right? So we may sprinkle some of the past, but like you've put us in a trajectory that we're really excited about. And the first thing I want to talk about, we're going to jump around.
Sure.
But first, I want to talk about the football class that you had when you were teaching at Mississippi State, because I want to know about the class. And now after you gave us a breakdown, like one of the things when you look at your CV, you're talking about you use film. So you took film study and put that into the class. So tell us about what the goal was in your football class that you took when you was at Mississippi State.
So they had some classes that were just fun classes, and they were generally directed toward freshmen. Didn't have to be, but freshmen. And the idea was, I think, I don't want to misspeak for Mississippi State, but I think the idea was you come to a university, maybe you're from a small town and you come to a university, because Mississippi State's one of the big state universities. I mean, Starkville's a small town, but it's one of the land grant, it's a land grant university. It's one of the two large universities in the state of Mississippi, Ole Miss and Mississippi State, right?
Yep.
And there's lots of wonderful community colleges and smaller colleges also in Mississippi. Mississippi has done a great job with that, by the way. But the idea was you take these classes as fun and you feel more comfortable on campus because, it's kind of a fun class and you get to meet people and it's sort of low stress and that sort of thing. So I heard about these classes and I thought, I think we need a football 101 class.
Let's go.
Where we do a little film analysis. And so, of course, I've taught little boot camps on this where I use YouTube because, there's no copyright issues and that sort of thing, particularly when it's education. I'm not getting paid for that kind of thing, whatever. And so what I did was I asked the athletic department, the football team, if I could get their film. And we know that when we talk about film and football, so there's the ESPN or the CBS or the Fox Sports or whoever's doing it for TV. But the football team at every university has two shots. They have the sideline shot and then they have the end zone shot. You want to teach about a pulling guard, you need an end zone shot.
Let's go. Hey,
it's hard if you don't know what a pulling guard is. It's hard to understand that from a sideline shot.
Right.
So every play I had, they gave me the sideline shot, which is analogous to the TV shot, right? And then the end zone shot. And so if I wanted to teach, a pulling guard on a run play or something like that. And then, so what I did was I took all of that film and I taught football from the way I learned it, the way my daddy taught me. Break down every single player or every position, so to speak. So, and what did my daddy teach me back a long time ago? Watch the guards, for goodness sake, watch the guards. They do.
Let's go. Yes.
And even today, when you think about play action versus any of the play, you're watching the guards and the tackles. Are they going forward or are they going backwards? Mm-hmm. Right. Basically, what are they doing? Are they run passing or are they block pass? Are they run passing? Run blocking or pass blocking? Right. You can watch their footwork. Right. And so one of the first things I taught was let's look at the quarterback and let's look at the running back. Is he under center? Is he in the gun or is he in the pistol? And so where's the running back? Where is he? That tells you a lot. right? And then, then we went from there. We talked about the 9 routes for a wide receiver. And then we moved to, when we moved to defense, it was like, are they in man versus zone? Are they cover 2 man? They can cover 2 zone. Right. And I remember one of the first days I taught this class, I walk into the class. So I'm not real short, but I'm just under 5'5". I'm not tall. I'm kind of average height, but I'm small. I'm petite. And I was at the computer, and most of the people who took the class were males, right? Many of them had played, sports in high school and stuff, right? And I walk into the classroom, a younger version of this. I'm at the computer, and they were like, "Are you the IT person?" Like, no, I'm the teacher. Sit your little butt down and you might learn something.
Let's go. That's an amazing
please,
thing.
Please. And then fast forward, there was a young woman. So we had our first test in one of the semesters. We had our first test. And this young woman who knew nothing about football made an A on the test. Of course, I can't reveal, from privacy laws who made what, right? But the students share that with each other. That's on them, right?
Right.
So anyway, this young man who had played high school football, who thought he knew everything, says to the class, he was like, "How did I get an 80 and she got 100?" And she turns around and looks at him, and she was like, "Because I studied the film and you obviously didn't."
There it is.
Anyway,
that.
You couldn't have paid for anything better than that, right? It's kind of like, okay.
I love it.
I know, right? Because if you're athletic in high school, you can get by with a lot of stuff without a lot of film study, because you're just more athletic than the guy covering you or the lady covering you, right? And so it was like I couldn't have paid for that. It was like a scene out of a movie,
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And I might have to, after this, we might have to see if I can get that curriculum or syllabus or something. I've been charged.
It was a lot of fun because the thing is, it actually takes a lot of work to, particularly if you don't want to violate copyright. I mean, I paid for some film. I paid for some film, but like at Mississippi State, they gave me the film.
Right.
And, education, we have a little bit more leeway than if I was, doing this for, hired gun kind of thing. But if I want to teach a particular concept, I need to find a play that has that concept, right? So, you want someone to run a particular route, right? You need to find that route. Okay. And you can find that. It's not that you can't find that, but you might want a certain thing. And so, so one of my favorite players, he's retired now. One of my favorite players in the whole wide world is Julio Jones. And I used a lot of his clips.
Hey, he had some. Okay, good stuff.
Because it's like, okay, he's going to run a 9 route, or he's going to run across the middle, and he's going to tear up the linebacker that's trying to cover him.
So MH is the film study on our thing. So y'all may have to break out and do some film study where he can definitely take some cues from you. So you said,
just make it fun, right? And my job was, I always told the students, I'm not a coach. I don't know what a coach knows. I don't pretend to know what a coach knows. But if you want to enjoy a football game, it's nice to know a little bit more about the X's and the O's. It's easier to follow. Yeah, you can cheer when they get a touchdown. You can cheer when they get an interception. But if you know that, that guy actually missed his coverage, that's why that play broke down, or the wide receiver ran the wrong route. And I remember this great play. I don't even remember who Alabama was playing against. And I've shown this play before and I can't remember who it was, but Alabama, I have to go back and look at it. Alabama was playing somebody, and it was, not another SEC team. It was a lower ranked team. And the wide receiver ran the wrong route. They were inside the red zone, within the 20-yard line. The wide receiver ran the wrong route, but he still got a touchdown. And when he came off the field, this was when Nick Saban was still coaching him. Nick Saban was scolding him. And, it was like the announcer and the color announcer. And they were like, one of them was like, oh, come on, man, he got a touchdown. What's the problem? And the other one said, no, no, no. What Nick Saban is saying to him, you pull that against an LSU DB and you're going to be done, right? Because he's, good enough to know you ran the wrong route. And so I use that kind of analogy of let's learn about what they did wrong. This is about a process. This isn't about just getting a touchdown, but how can you get a touchdown when you're playing against other elite players? You need to understand a little bit about the game.
There it is.
100%.
So that's what I enjoy. Too. And again, I never pretend I'm not a coach, but I'm interested in the X's and O's and really in all sports. Same with basketball. It's like, are they in a zone versus man? Oh my God, they just switched. Why did they switch? Oh, they've got a smaller group of players in. I watch a lot of tennis.
Now hold on. They don't call you Professor Coach. I know you're right. I know you're not a coach, but like you're definitely. And I mean, let's go to Georgia Tech, right? So in your role there, you spend a lot of time with the athletes, right? When the recruits come, you do a lot of, they have advisors and people that come on. You're one of the roster of people that get to speak to these recruits that come in and not only talk to them about being Dr. Coach, but just your business program. So do you talk to them on the academic side? And how does that work? And how did you start doing that?
So, athletics often, so I'm on the athletic board, right? But even before I was on the GT athletic board, because of my interest in sports, and I'm in the College of Business, and a lot of our athletes major in business. And so when they do, often the coaches, all of the sports, right? Football, tennis, women's and men's basketball, all of the tennis, right? Swimming and diving. They often want me to talk to the athletes. And then when they come for their recruiting visit, the parents are also there. So when I talk to the parents, I'm talking about the value of a Georgia Tech degree because, 99.9% of the people walking across the stage at graduation, they have a job in hand, right? That's the value of a Georgia Tech degree. And that's no shade in any other university. There's plenty of other wonderful universities, right? But, Georgia Tech students, when they graduate, most of them, the vast majority of them have a job in hand.
That's amazing.
So even if you're a student athlete, we know that only about 1% of them or less than 1% are going to play professional sports. So we want to have everyone, student athletes and non-student athletes, get jobs, right? Jobs are important, right? Because we need to pay our bills, right? I remind my dog of this daily because my dog has never contributed ever to the financial situation in this house. Because he did not get a Georgia Tech degree, right? So, but I've talked to the parents generally about the value of a Georgia Tech degree, just the value of a degree in general, but particularly a Georgia Tech degree because the name of Georgia Tech, it's very valuable. It gets people jobs. But then with the student athletes, think about the average 17-year-old. Forget if they're a student athlete. The average 17-year-old may not know exactly what they want to do. Some do, but a lot don't. And it doesn't matter if you're an athlete or not an athlete. You're not really sure what you want to do. So you've declared your major in business or chemical engineering or computer science, but you may not know exactly what you want to do with that. So I don't talk to the student athletes about their degree. Maybe a little bit. I talk more about that with their parents. What I talk to them about is like football players. I've watched their huddle film.
Oh, let's go. Shout out to Huddle.
Shout out to Huddle.
So
I
you
have
got
watched
the
their
scouting,
huddle film.
you got the scouting
I've watched
report
their
on them?
YouTube. I've watched their YouTube videos, and a lot of particularly skilled position players, but a lot of players in high school, you've played both sides of the ball, right?
Yes.
So
yes,
I talked to them about that. It's like, you're coming here as a wide receiver. I've seen your DB skills. Like, you mean.
Nice. Now, so that's the part of the recruiting part, right? So that's a thing of itself. How has NIL changed, that conversation, right? Because, and I don't know if they speak to you much about it, right? Because, I think that's more of the athletic department.
Right.
But
yeah, that's really
I'm sure
not my role. And I don't bring that up.
Are you guys looking into some research over that? Because that has to be changing
So
the dynamic.
I've got a team. So we have this minor in sports and the business of sports and entertainment, and we have several classes on that. We have some practicum classes on that. I'll tell you about those in just a second. But I teach we have this unbelievable, interesting situation at Georgia Tech where we can teach something called VIP classes. So VIP, you think very important person, right? But VIP, and they're all very important people, right? But VIP at Georgia Tech means vertically integrated projects. And so it allows students to register for a class, to work on research projects with the professor, and they can sign up for that class as many semesters as they want to until they graduate. So it's unbelievable. So I have students, I've taught it now. This will be my third semester coming up in the fall of this year.
Okay.
I have students that have been with me in the fall. They've already registered for fall classes, fall of this year. They will have been with me for 3 semesters, working with me on research. So we have a team. One of our teams is specifically working on the intersection of NIL, revenue sharing, because those are 2 different things. Those are 2 completely different things. NIL, revenue sharing, and the transfer portal, specifically with relation to men's basketball. And the reason we started this project was because when revenue sharing was allowed, revenue sharing different than NIL, it's from the House case versus the NCAA. Yeah. Every school has the ability, the option to spend up to this year, up to $20.5 million of their media money. I mean, money's fungible. It doesn't really matter, but they can spend $20.5 million toward revenue sharing. Okay. That's over and above NIL, because NIL generally isn't running through the university. It's third party, donors, collectives, that sort of thing. Okay.
Right.
Okay. So this $20.5 million, when you think about $20.5 million, okay, so here's my finance hat. When you think about Coca-Cola here in Atlanta, $20.5 million is nothing. That's less than 1% of their revenues. Right. It's, as my mother would say, God rest her soul, that's 5 pounds on an elephant. It's nothing. $20.5 million to an athletic department is a lot of money. It's anywhere between a little under 10 to more than 20% of your total revenues.
All right.
Right? And so now you have an expense that's so let's say you're in the Big Ten and you're getting $70 million from your media contract, right? You're going to take 20 of that and hand it over to your athletes, right? Because the House case said that they deserve that. And I don't disagree with that. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. I don't disagree with athletes being paid. But in terms of percentage of revenue, that's a lot. So there was a conversation about a year ago that was being had that said, okay, so let's think about the traditional Big East school that doesn't have football. They also don't have the big media contracts of the SEC and the Big Ten, but they don't have football. So a lot of schools that have football, most Power 4 programs, and I'm spitballing here. I'm spitballing. Okay. That's Southern for I'm estimating. Right. Most schools that have football programs are going to spend anywhere around 75, 80% of their media money, the 20 million, and allocate that to football, and maybe 15% for basketball.
Basketball. Yeah.
Okay. So 80% of the 20 is 16 million. And it may be 70, whatever the number is, but let's just say it's 80%. We've got 16 million to football. And if you do 15% to men's basketball, you got 3 million. And then you have another 2 million to allocate between the other sports. Okay. And again, that may not be the formula for all programs, but it's not outside the realm of reasonableness. Okay.
Right.
But when you think about Big East schools that don't have football programs, they don't need to allocate anything to football because they don't have football, because they can allocate most of it to basketball. So then the question is, even though their media contracts are lower, can they outbid the Power 4 programs with their revenue sharing?
Okay.
Right? Okay. So, but revenue sharing isn't the only thing you can spend. You can also go over the cap through NIL. Now, the problem now with NIL, as a part of the House case, you have to go through NIL Go and get it all approved. But so we have a team of students that are working on that very thing. It's what's the intersection of NIL, revenue sharing, and recruiting? Because some schools also, here's the other thing about some schools, St. John's is an example. Their coach, again, I don't want to speak for their coach. I'm not speaking for their coach, right? But from what I've read, he has basically said he's going to get most of his recruits from the transfer portal. Okay.
Large amount. Yeah.
Okay. And then other schools, maybe Florida, for example, has in the past couple of years gotten most of their recruits from freshmen, from high school, right? Okay. So we want to layer on the research, the intersection between NIL, revenue sharing, and the philosophy of where are you going to get your recruits from? Because do transfers cost more than freshmen? Right?
Yeah, it depends, right? But yeah.
Right. It just depends, right? So we do have a student team working on that. We have a student team working on, so because I'm a finance professor and for years in industry, I've valued firms. We have a team working on what's the valuation of Power 4 football programs. So if you were an investor and you wanted to buy Georgia Tech football, Michigan football, Alabama football, what would you pay for
What's that
it?
cost? Yeah.
What would it cost you? And we're not using it as a revenue multiple, because when people like some of these magazines, these sports magazines, do it as revenue multiples are based on a previous transaction that happened. But we've got schools in the Power 4, they have revenue, but they have negative earnings. So I can get a fifth grader to take their revenue and multiply it by 10. That doesn't mean it's worth that.
Correct.
Right. And so we've got a team of students working on the valuation of college football teams. So they have done open records research request. They have gotten all of the financials from all of these schools back to 2018, and they're building financial models to value college football teams.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. It really is. And, that class counts toward the minor in sports and entertainment. And, when we get back to that, if we want to build people in that work in sports, right, in business and entertainment, there's two areas that are really growing now with jobs. And I'm talking outside of I'm a professional athlete, right? It's data analytics and sort of fan engagement, digital marketing, storytelling, and that sort of thing. And that's what we're trying to combine at Georgia Tech with this minor, is giving students the skills to get jobs. If I want to go work, you're a 22-year-old and you're good at storytelling and digital marketing, you want to do that professional sports team, or even Warner Brothers, somebody like that, you've got the skills to do that. That's what we're trying to create.
No, you're creating it. I mean, with having these BIP classes some of this work that you're talking about is stuff that some people, or back when I was going through the education process, that you're not getting until doctorate or master level.
Exactly.
So
right.
To be getting that training or that kind of work or experience is amazing. So
and we have a team that's working on a baseball player performance measure that will help allocate the revenue sharing money. They have spent months working on this project, and we have something at Georgia Tech called CreateX. It's completely different from the minor. So CreateX is a program at Georgia Tech that anybody can be a part of that encourages students to, it's their entrepreneurship. That you want to build a business, CreateX is going to help you do that. So this team of 4 students has an idea, a product that would help universities allocate their revenue sharing, and they applied. You have to apply to get a part of CreateX. They have been accepted to CreateX. So over and above my VIP class, they have applied to CreateX. They have been accepted to CreateX to work on, could this be something that they could build as a business in sports, right? And so these are the things that Georgia Tech's doing that really is going to help people, in my opinion, to, yes, if you're an elite athlete, that's one track in sports. But a lot of people like myself and these students want to work in sports, but not because they're athletes. Maybe they were former athletes, right? But because they want to work on the business of sports or the science of sports. We have faculty at Georgia Tech in the sciences field that are working on, can we build a better helmet to prevent concussions? Can we analyze the gait of track and field, like hurdlers, that sort of thing? And so my vision in this minor is to eventually have a center, and centers of research at universities are what break down silos. So we have an organization at Georgia Tech called Sprint, and it's all the faculty all across Georgia Tech that's working on research in sports. But often we don't meet each other, right? We don't, people in business often don't meet people in the sciences or, the other computer science, because, we're all in little silos. So Sprint is an organization at Georgia Tech where faculty that are working in sports innovation, we get to meet each other. Well, ultimately, my vision is that would become a center, multidisciplinary. We can't have it to be, we want to include everybody. Business, Ivan Allen, computer, sciences, computer science, industrial engineering, everybody, design, real estate. We have a new college in creative arts and technologies. All of these colleges come together to work together on research. So what centers do at universities, it's a way for faculty to be able to go to conferences because you can get funding to go to conferences. Then we can have students. I want to be able to send students to the MIT Sports Conference.
Sloan.
Sloan. That's right. That's expensive. If we have a center with funding, we can send students to that. And then they can meet people in the industry, right? We can buy data for the research. We can send faculty members to conferences, right? And our mayor in Atlanta, do y'all know who our mayor is? Do you want to Google who our mayor is? Andre Dickens. So Andre, Georgia Tech grad.
There you go.
Go Jackets. He also wants the city of Atlanta and the state of Georgia to be innovative in sports. Well, who better to help with that than Georgia Tech? We're great at innovation. That's what we're good at, right? And so that's what I see the vision of sports at Georgia Tech is have people in business and science and basically we're going to have engineers, we're going to have scientists, we're going to have business people, and we're all going to work together to push forward sports innovation. That's my vision.
And like you said, definitely that the mayor's on board with that because that's what we had a chance to meet, right? Like we got to see one of your expo centers as the partnership with CCON, which is UNLV's partnership with like a center. So it's great, and you guys rolled out the carpet.
I mean, that's actually Jay Vickers, who's the developer of CCON, or he runs CCON, right? He's a great guy, right? Mm-hmm. So where we met actually was conference with Genexus and CCON, and that's the Georgia Office of Economic Development, and Dawn Price, who's focusing on sports innovation, right, here in the state of Georgia. And that's the other thing. We want to include other universities. It's not just Georgia Tech. There's people all across the state of Georgia, faculty, researchers who are working on sports, but why not? That's my big vision. You know, we're small right now, but we can get there because sports is billion dollar industry, right?
Yes.
And we need people to be able to analyze the data. And you know, a lot of we have a class right now in the minor. Y'all will love this. It's a practicum class. There's no lectures in the class. There's 4 projects in the class. Mm-hmm. And we have partnered with entities here in Atlanta. One of the projects is with GT Athletics. What are the students working on? So it's as if they have been hired by GT Athletics as consultants. That's what practicum classes are.
Yeah.
So they are helping GT Athletics with the following idea. How do you do differential pricing for premium seating? Right? Because there's the suites, but there's also better seats and, you know, that sort of thing. How do you do that? How do you better fan engagement? And EJ, you know Kevin Cohn. Kevin helped us. It's like, oh, we're going to work on differential pricing. Let's get Delta involved in the project because they deal with differential pricing every day, first class versus comfort versus basic. So they're helping the students think about how do you differentiate pricing across different products. Then we have a project with the Braves, helping them with fan experience. We have a project with the First Center, again, helping with marketing. First Center is an art center on Georgia Tech's campus. And so these practicum classes give our students these experiential learning forums to meet people in industry and think about what are they really worried about.
Yeah.
Right?
That's nice.
Yeah.
All right. So let's to change gears. We got MH, man. You ready with the sudden change?
Yes, ma'am. JG, these are just random questions so our listeners can get to know you better. Texting or talking? Do you prefer texting or you prefer talking on the phone?
Talking.
Your favorite day of the week?
probably Saturday, because it's game day.
Love it.
Pancakes or waffles?
Waffles.
I think I know the answer to this one. Roll Tide or War Eagle?
Okay. It's roll time. And here's the thing. Let me tell you. So my dad was a big Alabama fan. And my mother was an Auburn fan, but not a big Auburn fan, kind of like whatever, when she met my father. And she became an Alabama fan, married to my father. Lovely, lovely Southern woman. So this was her theory about Roll Tide versus War Eagle. And she didn't really care about the rankings. Sometimes you need your opponent to lose, right? She didn't care about that. She always pulled for both Alabama and Auburn, except in the Iron Bowl, where she pulled for Alabama. Okay. And, people are like, Mama, or Auntie, you need, why are you pulling for Auburn? I thought you were an Alabama fan. And she would say, no. She said, if both of the teams win, that makes the state of Alabama look good.
I love that. Okay.
I agree.
Yeah.
No, but I'm Roll Tide, but I don't hate Auburn. In fact,
Okay.
my main co-author for most of my academic career is a professor. She's my best friend. She's retired now, but she was a professor at Auburn. And yes, I pull for Alabama, but Auburn University is one of the prettiest campuses. I love going there. I do. And so I don't hate Auburn. And in fact, most of the people from my high school, more people went to Auburn than Alabama. And so, I love Auburn too. I don't hate them because, they're like the War Eagle. Are you kidding me? That is like a great tradition.
You got to be there.
You gotta be there to see the eagle, man. I mean, that's amazing.
You got to. It's
Yeah.
crazy. I got two more for you.
Yes, sir.
Scale of 1 to 10. How good of a driver are you?
Well, depends on if I'm in a manual or an automatic transmission.
I love it.
You put me in a Porsche 5-speed or 6-speed,
I'm out.
I'm gonna blow it up, and I might get arrested. But I'd say about a 7
About a
on
7.
average.
There you go.
My last one, EJ's favorite. iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
All right. Anyway, so I'm going to jump in for some quick hits. Just some things that we want to make sure we get in.
Sure.
Some attempt to kind of throw these into like a quick hit situation. So out of Georgia Tech has had some great, historical players, and I'm just going to do these two sports. But out of these athletes, you got to tell me who's your favorite out of these. All right. So in basketball, you had Dennis Scott, Mark Price, Kenny Anderson, Stephon Marbury, Chris Bosh. Who is your favorite out of that all-time basketball group?
Okay. I love all of them.
Of course. Yes.
But
Yes.
my neighbor is Dennis Scott.
There it is.
He my
Awesome.
guy.
Okay.
Dennis Scott. Go Jackets.
There it is. Okay. So for football, just a little shorter list. And since you like wide receivers, I had to put this guy, Megatron. Okay. So Calvin Johnson. And we'll give a shout out to Darren Waller. He played here in Vegas for the Raiders. Also, Georgia, he was definitely there making strides. Who else? Bruce Smith. Top one out of the football category.
I would say Megatron.
There it is. I
Well,
love that.
because I've prayed about this. Okay.
Southern
So
girl,
I'm
of course
about
you did.
5'5",
Absolutely.
about 116 pounds.
Okay.
Okay. Everybody in my family, males, some of them are 6'8", for God's sake. Okay. I'm going to be the size of Megatron in my next life. I'm going to be 6'5". What was he? 6'5"?
6'5". Yes, ma'am.
What? 240, 230?
Yep.
Yeah.
And
all
probably
right.
like 4% body fat, right? Okay.
Mhm.
So I've lived a good life. I think the good Lord is going to make me big next time.
I love that.
I love it. Shout out to Iman Shumpert, my favorite Georgia Tech basketball player ever.
There you go, Shumpert. Shout out to Shumpert. I like his role on The Shy a lot though. Okay, so awards. So we talk about the Transcendent Award, and like it takes me to the movie Hurricane with Denzel Washington, right? When he's talking to Ezra.
I love Denzel.
Yeah, so he's talking to Ezra, you know, he's the boxer, and he's in there and he says, Ezra, you have to transcend. What do awards like that and the multiple other awards that you've won mean as a professor, especially in the R1 Institute? Like, what does those awards around your teaching and around your research mean?
Yeah, I think, some people don't think awards are very important, but I actually think they do, because it gives you, confirmation that what you're doing speaks to people. And in terms of teaching, I think I'm a natural teacher. I think God gave me some gifts at teaching. And in terms of, I love people, and I was always a good student, but I wasn't the smartest kid in the class. I was the hardest working kid in the class, right? And so some people can just sit in a classroom and get it immediately. That wasn't me. I had to study. And so I really relate to people who can explain something in a very simple way, right? And so that's what I've tried to model my teaching after, is one, being inclusive, but also it's not about being smart or not smart. Lots of people are smart, but does this speak to you or not speak to you? I mean, I was smart enough, but I needed to really work at it. And so when people explained things well, so I really try to break things down. And so when you get and I want to know the student's name. So I make name tents, right? I try to remember their names, because some of my classes, I've got 75 students in a class. Well, I'm really good at face recognition. I mean, I remember one time when, what is his name? His name is escaping me. Played for the Titans, played for Alabama. Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry was playing for Alabama. And what was distinctive, not only his size, but what was really distinctive about Derrick Henry when he was in college, he had the long, thick dreads, right? Okay. And I was at the Birmingham airport, and I was going home for Christmas or something, and Alabama had lost a bowl game, and there were about 10 Alabama players picking up their luggage, but none of them were talking to each other. They had lost. And I looked and I thought, God, that looks like Derrick Henry. So Derrick was in sweatpants, had a hoodie up, right? Nobody's talking to each other. They're trying to be invisible. So his distinctive dreads were covered. But I recognized his eyes because he has very large eyes, right? And you see that through the helmet. You don't see a lot through the helmet, but you see the eyes through the helmet. I recognized him through his eyes. So I walked over to him and I said, I mouthed. I didn't want to bring attention because, they had lost. I said, "Are you Derrick Henry?" And he nodded. And I said, "I'm a really big fan." And he hugged me and so forth. So I'm really good at remembering faces, but with 75 students in each class, you might not remember their names. So I create name tents. That way I can call on you, right? And I can say, "Okay, MH, what do you think about this? Okay, EJ, will you help me with the problem?" Right? I try to make a connection because I like connections. I'm an extrovert. And that's the other thing I think a lot of the research shows that a lot of students in business learn by doing. Well, that's how I learned.
Right.
Don't tell me what to do. Show me how to do it. So I rarely lecture in class. The entire class period is we work together in an Excel file. and we work on something together. So yes, I'm explaining it, but I don't have PowerPoints in classroom. I haven't done that in decades. And so I feel like when you get awards like that, it's confirming that, you're trying to do the right thing to make a connection to help people. And, business students in particular, like I said, they learn by doing. Okay, so let's do. I don't want to talk to you. Let's do something. It's just like, and this is the analogy I tell my students, whether I said, okay, who's played the piano? Who plays the piano? Okay, they raise their hand. Who's been a track star? Who's been a football player? Whatever you do. Okay, so let's suppose I'm a tennis player. Okay, I can watch videos of Serena Williams hitting an ace. But until I do it myself or try to do it myself, I'm never going to learn.
Yeah.
So that's how I try to teach is let's work on something together. Let's practice. And I grade. I don't grade by right and wrong. Yes, you can. Yeah. I mean, you got to get the right answer, right? But the analogy I'll use, here's another Nick Saban example. Okay. Got to love Nick's. So the example I mentioned before, where I think I mentioned this, I did. The wide receiver ran the wrong route.
Yeah.
Okay. And Nick Saban was scolding him, right? And the two announcers were talking about, why is that, so forth. So I tell that story to my students. It's like, what was Nick Saban actually trying to tell that wide receiver? It's the process, not the outcome. Yes, you got a touchdown, but you do that against LSU DB, like good luck, right? DBU, right? LSU was DBU for a long, long time, right?
That's right.
So I tell my students, it's like, yes, I want you to get the right answer, but I give partial credit on every question because I'm trying to reward you for the process. The actual right answer is not as important as, did you know what you were doing along the way?
Right.
And while I may count off a little bit, right, you didn't get the exact right answer, but you only made one little tiny error at the end, I'm not going to take off the full points, because if this was a multiple choice question, the person who guessed and got the wrong answer is no different than the person who got everything right except to the end. So I don't do multiple choice questions for quantitative. I don't do multiple choice answers for quantitative questions. So it takes me and my TAs about a week to grade an exam because we give partial credit, because the analogy is the sports analogy. I'm rewarding the process,
There you go.
not the
Yes.
outcome, because that's how you learn.
I love that. So so we're bringing it on home. We're in the winner's circle.
Yes.
And throughout the show, we have been talking about the business and sports entertainment minor that you guys created. But what was the genesis, right? Like I know that there's just been an explosion, and you really hit it home talking about the two aspects that are growing the most, right? The fan engagement and the data and the analysis of things. But what brought this minor, what was the genesis of creating it?
Yeah, so I think there were a lot of faculty. There's a lot of faculty at Georgia Tech working on this. And I think it was a realization, this is valuable. And we have both faculty and administrators and students that would benefit from this. And let's create a minor. And so it was really just a realization of the value that students could benefit from as well as faculty. And, I was so excited, they posted the job for the director. Of course, I applied for it, and there were plenty of other people that applied for it that are very qualified and so forth. So I was thrilled to be named the director of the minor. It is my passion. And, that's another thing that, anyone listening, I think what's I think for all of us, we should know, because I thought with all my interest in sports for years and, my data analytic, my class at Mississippi State, and I've done I do boot camps at Georgia Tech on football 101 too. I've done boot camps for years at universities on, kind of the X's and O's. So I always thought, should I work for somebody like ESPN? Should I be an analyst? I thought about that. But then, I started doing research in football, and not just football, in sports. And I realized my skill set in my training in finance and econometrics and data analytics, I'm better doing research in this and let other people work for ESPN who were very qualified and so forth, right? And I think all of us can learn from, it may take you a while on your journey to figure out what it is you need to do. But when I was named the director, I thought, okay, wow, I'm kind of later in my career to be named the director, right? I think, what if I had been named this when I was 30 at a different university or whatever? But this is where I am. And I'm so thrilled. I'm just thrilled because I feel like all of the struggles and the questions that I've had about, right? I now have a pretty strong vision of how we can do this, right? And so I really think that we can be one of the innovators. There's plenty in sports, in the research, in helping students get jobs in sports, right? Because years ago, and this is no shade on anybody's job, when people thought about jobs in sports, if you weren't an athlete, you were selling tickets. Yep. Not that there's anything wrong with that job. There's a lot of different paths in sports, yes. Right? Lots and lots. So the more we expose people to those jobs, and again, that's no shade on anyone selling tickets. That's not my point. But that's what people thought. Oh, that's all you do. No. And now that's a big analytics job because there's differential pricing questions and all that kind of stuff. So there's so many different jobs in sports now, and why not expose people to that? And you think about, we have a new college at Georgia Tech, arts, entertainment, and creative technologies. Mm-hmm. And think arts, entertainment, and creative technologies at Georgia Tech. Well, that's one of the new pillars of Georgia Tech. In addition to sports, we have a pillar of arts. Right. Well, guess what? People that are going to major in that, they have a pathway to sports too, because we need creative people in sports. Yes. We need creative people in entertainment to come up with signage and digital boards and ideas. Think about what the NBA has done for the past couple of years. They have art shows affiliated with games and all-star games. Okay, who would have thunk it? Well, that gets people in, right? That helps build your brand, and that helps build your fan engagement. Oh, there's an art show related to the basketball game. Right. So all of these things intersect because that was the big thing at Georgia Tech. It couldn't just be sports. It had to also include entertainment. Beautiful. And I think you hit right home with that. And I believe that was one of the genesis when MH and I started this podcast, is really getting other ideas, right? So now we had a chance to have you that came from finance, right? And right. When you traditionally don't think about I'm good with numbers, right? How can I be good with numbers and transition that into a life in sports? Right. And you think about finance, right? Think about right now. Lots of private equity firms are investing not just in professional sports, but in college sports. That's a finance question. We need people that are valuing teams that have the background in valuation that also have an interest in sports. This is just explosive, in my opinion. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then, so you're talking right. So it's a minor. Now, with this minor that you all created, can it be paired with any major, right?
Any
Like, so is it
major.
any
Any
major?
major.
So that's
So
really huge.
any major, and a lot of times we say at Georgia Tech concentration. It depends on, you may have a, so like in the College of Business, you have a major in business with a concentration in finance or concentration in marketing or concentration. So minors are available to anyone. So you could be a computer science major minoring in sports because maybe you want to do data analytics for the Braves or data analytics for the Falcons. You could be a media major, which is out of a different college than business, Ivan Allen, and you want to do something related to that with sports. You can do that. You could be a psychology major and do. It doesn't matter what your major is. Minors are available to anyone, and there's 5 credits. You need 5 credits to get a minor, 5 classes. So 15 credits, 5 classes. And some of those classes may double count. So if you're an economics major, one of the economics of sports classes double counts for your econ major and your minor. So you only need 4 more classes.
Okay, give it game. There's a little inside tip right there.
Little inside tip, right? And so, I think that's the beauty of this minor is it's a recognition that a lot of different people with different skill sets can work in sports, right?
Yes.
We have psychology of sports. We have business of sports. We have media and design and digital marketing. So students who are majoring in business with a concentration in marketing could get a minor and do digital marketing for one of the sports teams or one of the entertainment companies, right? Or you have an ops. Let's say you're an operations concentration in the College of Business. Well, people that put on, so we have a project. We're hoping to do a project with AA Productions. They're who puts on Hell of a Block Party for Georgia Tech.
Okay.
We've been talking to them. Okay. So they have a lot of things in terms of putting on Hell of a Block Party at Georgia Tech. There's a lot of operations and marketing and all kinds of different skill sets that you need to do that. Well, let's say you're an ops major or an ops concentration. That might be really useful for you to help with that project because you'll get skill sets that you could use to get a job. And I think that's the beauty of this minor is it sort of transcends a lot of different majors, right? Computer science. Well, the other thing that we're thinking about doing is maybe, this is kind of on the cusp here.
Okay. Little exclusive.
Okay. So, by the way, we've got a class already scheduled for the fall. It's the marketing of sports and entertainment.
Okay.
You know who's teaching it? Snap. The marketing executive at the Braves is going to teach the class. His name is Adam Zimmerman. He's teaching our class on the marketing of sports and entertainment. Yeah, I think he knows a lot about that.
And that's amazing. So do you have a lot of athletes or people in the sports world excited to start joining and partnering? Is that like one of the next steps? Okay, definitely. That's awesome. That's awesome.
I'm working on that. I can't tell you about all of the things we're working on, right? But those are the types of things we're trying to do because, again, we all know this. Yes, you need skills, you need classes and so forth, but introducing people to others in the field, right? You got to have those contacts, make that impression, maybe get an internship, that sort of thing. We're trying to do all those sorts of things. And that's what we're doing with these practicum classes. I'm going to start a speaker series. I'm going to help with the Gen X's conference this fall. I mean, it's going to be held at Georgia Tech like it was last year.
Nice.
All of those things, and eventually, like we said before, it would be great if this grew to a center. And we have a lot to learn from other colleges like UNLV that has a center. Not that we're trying to compete with them, but we can do similar things at Georgia Tech, right?
Yes.
Doing similar things for our students, right? Because
Absolutely.
we need to serve our students, right? They serve their students. We need to serve, and their faculty. We need to do the same thing at Georgia Tech. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we've talked about a lot of, intersection, right? So you guys have an intersection podcast. Now, is that done out of the business school or where is that done? The intersection podcast.
So when you talk about that, who's doing that?
So yeah, so we just came across Georgia Tech and they were just talking about some of the people, and I don't know if that's the broader brand of having different schools highlight different things, but yeah, we saw the intersection podcast, and so it was definitely we're a podcast, so
Yeah.
it definitely intrigued us.
Yeah, and I mean all those types of things. I think having been in academia now for longer than I was in industry, it's very easy in academia to get in a silo, and there's not anything wrong with that per se, because you're working on CEO compensation, so you have no idea what the computer science people are working on. But a lot of times, if we start breaking down those silos, like we're trying to do in sports at Georgia Tech, we realize, oh my goodness, we could probably collaborate. So I'll give you an example. The students who were working, I told you on the baseball performance measure in my VIP class, I was telling a woman who's a music technology professor at Georgia Tech. So we have a music technology degree. Okay. Those students might be interested in a sports minor, but I was talking to her about their project. And I said, they just created a dashboard. Okay. So the people that are working in my VIP class, they're business students. I think one's industrial engineering, two are business, one's industrial engineering, and one is a math major. Okay. So they tend to be more quant, which is great. I mean, they've built the dashboard, they've done the analysis and so forth. So I'm talking to my friend who's a music technology professor, who's a quant in music. So think about that. Okay. And she had this great idea. She said, why don't you sonify the dashboard? And I said, well, what do you mean? She goes, well, who's going to be using the dashboard? I said, well, maybe coaches or whatever. She said, wouldn't it be more interesting if when you clicked on, a batter's statistics, maybe it sounded like somebody was hitting a ball.
Nice. Okay.
Right. And so I think there's a lot of collaboration, because when you think about a dashboard, if you're going to sell a product to somebody, no, you don't want it to be silly, but you want it to be user friendly.
Yes.
So while coaches now are way more analytical than we think they are, right? They're very analytical. You don't want them, they have limited amounts of time. So you want the dashboard. If you're giving them a dashboard of data, this is the data on all of your recruits, right? It needs to be easy to read and easy to go through. And why not make it entertaining with a little bit of sound, right?
Because they're going through a lot of it,
all of
right?
those things come to that sort of idea of intersection. Yeah.
That makes sense, because I mean that's happening right now where scouts are looking at those. They're using AI and technology
Yes.
to say, why should we? I think there's even a commercial out there that's we'll probably see more of it around the draft. But and I don't know what company, I'm not going to guess, but one of those technology companies is currently doing that, where they have the guy, he's looking at the data, has his dashboard and say, oh, this is why we picked you and why we went with that person.
Exactly. Right. And I mean, and so one of my projects in the VIP class, it's a research project I'm working on with some other faculty. We have every DraftKings fantasy sports transaction of every tournament back to 2018. Okay.
Okay.
millions and millions and millions of observations. Okay. So I'm a nerd. So the two guys that asked me to come into the project, they were like, you can code. I was like, yeah. So I don't do fantasy sports. I mean, people are just shocked at that, but because I'm a little ADHD, OCD, I'm afraid I might like only do that. Right. let's not get down that bunny trail, because I might just not do my job. Okay. The point is, there's millions and millions and millions of observations. There's all this rich data. So I've got two teams. We're asking two very interesting questions. One team is asking sort of a behavioral finance question. We're treating every roster that somebody submits. So EJ, you submit a roster in week 1. That's similar to a stock portfolio of 9 stocks. And I know the actual points that Jalen Hurts, you picked Jalen Hurts as your quarterback. I know his actual points. I can merge that with CBS, what CBS projects his points to be. Well, now the difference between actual and projected is what we call in finance an alpha. It's your excess return. And granted, that could be positive or negative. Okay. So what we're looking at is, if you win in week 1, do you take, like a trader might, do you take more risk with your roster in week 2? And we find that you do.
Wow. Looking at the data shows, right?
That's the data. And then I've got another team using the same data, asking a different question. This is maybe a more interesting question. You want to win at fantasy sports? What do you need to do?
Like that one.
Yeah.
Where do you get these reports at?
I know. And so, some of the things that it's more than this, because we're using machine learning and so forth. But one of the things that we are confirming is something that people talk about on Reddit. You should always stack your quarterback with your number 1 wide receiver. Right? That makes sense, right? Because if your quarterback does well, your number 1 wide receiver does well. We have some anecdotes that you would never stack, or you shouldn't stack, a mobile or athletic quarterback with an expensive running back. Okay, that makes a lot of sense, but, well, yeah, because somebody like a Jalen Hurts is a running back, right?
In that role, absolutely.
That doesn't mean that his running back is not valuable, but it's not as valuable to a pocket passer that's a soldier.
There you go.
And then, we're trying to incorporate other things like weather reports and the stadium, if it's indoor or outdoor, and, we can pull in weather reports and so forth. So who would that be useful for? Anybody. All
of our people here in Vegas would love that.
Right. That's right. But, what might that be useful to? Not just people who are doing fantasy sports, but maybe even the houses that are offering fantasy sports. But it kind of gives questions that we traditionally ask in finance about risk and return. Does this apply to other things, right? And we're finding that it does. And so and then one of the things we're looking at, so some tournaments in DraftKings are very expensive. Some are cheap. There's a $3 tournament. There's a $20 tournament. Okay. Let's say I put up 20 rosters in week 1 in the $3 tournament versus $20 rosters in a $20 tournament. Well, maybe my risk changes given the amount of money I'm putting up, right?
Right.
Maybe I'm the same person, but when I only have to put up $3 versus $20, maybe I behave differently when I win or lose. So those are the types of questions we're asking. And the great thing about Georgia Tech, like a lot of the students that are working on those 2 projects, they're primarily CS and ISYE majors. Primarily. Not completely, but they're primarily that because they're comfortable with writing code.
Nice.
Right. Whereas some, like my valuation team, is primarily business students because
Okay.
that's what we do in business. We build discounted cash flow models to value Coca-Cola. Well, why not just do the same thing and value Michigan football?
I like it. I like it.
Right.
All right.
And so those are the skills that we're trying to impart to our students.
Absolutely.
So that they can work, so they can combine a couple of passions like I did. I think about it every day. It's like, how in the world did this girl from Alabama, who my daddy taught me the wishbone offense, but he also told me to stick with math. Okay, I couldn't have played football, even if I was, the right gender in my day, right? Because only boys played football in my day, right? I'm not big enough. I'd be dead.
Well, listen, when you come back as Calvin Johnson, you'll be able to play.
I will. Well, I'm
I
either
love that
actually,
you brought this full circle for us as well to talk about, where it started in this whole genesis.
That's right.
And we've traveled
now,
all the way
really,
around.
you should know, I do love me some Megatron, but I really want to be more like a JPP.
Really?
6'6", 270, no body fat. And I am, how tall was he? 6'7"?
Yeah, like about 6'6", 6'7".
6'7"?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
270?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Probably less than 5, 6, 7% body fat at his day, right? Complete assassin.
Yeah.
Had one job, was to come for the quarterback.
Yep.
Okay.
That's right.
That would be my dream. I don't want to be tackled.
Yeah.
Hey,
I don't want to be tackled. I want to tackle you.
There it is.
I'm sorry. Julio Jones and Megatron got beat up, man.
They did.
Hey, that's why Megatron had a short
to let
career
it
that we
go.
want.
Right.
He had to
I
let
mean,
it
look
go.
at Julio Jones. And, when he was in high school, he played both sides of the ball. So, he was a dog, man. I mean, he could whatever, but as he got older, he got hurt.
Absolutely. All right. So we're bringing it home. This part of the show we call the assist. But, for you, we're going to call it the coaching gym, right? So you get to put on your professor, your coaching hat, and just give us a quote that you live by or a quote that you want to share with our audience. What's one of your favorite quotes?
Oh, gosh. I'm going to mess it up, so I'm going to Google it. It's a Martin Luther King quote. Give me a second.
Yeah, while you Google it, MH, man, you want to kind of wrap up with some final thoughts, man, and we'll let her kind of do the quote and then bring it on home.
Yeah, no, this has been great. I think from my little window in sports right now, you are 100% right of where the industry is going. So the students that fall underneath your teaching and then your team's teaching are in very good hands, and you are right on the cutting edge of where I see sports going as we talk about it all the time. So I know it's getting late in the East Coast time, so really appreciate you, JG, hanging out with us.
Welcome. So here's I used to have this. I had this in my email for years. So this is my favorite quote. Martin Luther King Jr. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. I love that because I really think that's true. And I remember it reminds me of a time when I was mad at somebody and my mother, God rest her soul, my sweet dear mother, said, so my daddy called me Little Jack and my mother called me Itsy because everybody else is like a complete giant,
Itsy.
They're 6'8", and there I am, the runt. And I was mad at somebody and I wanted to, kind of spout off at somebody. Mm-hmm. And my mother said something to that effect. It wasn't that eloquent as Dr. King, but she basically said, it's easy to be nice to people who are nice to you, Jacqueline. can you be nice to people who aren't nice to you?
Man,
Can you be a lady? Can you be ladylike? You know, and so I love that quote because I really think that is the epitome of how you go through life is, you know, yeah, it's easy to be happy when things are comfortable, right?
Yes.
Can you be nice and gracious when things aren't so comfortable and when people are, you know, being ugly to you and maybe worse than that, right? You know, really trying to cause you harm. Can you be gracious and lovely? And of course, Dr. King was the epitome of that. And so I love that quote. I've always loved that quote because it really speaks to me. Yeah. So
That's definitely,
I'd say that's my favorite.
That's a definitely great way to end it with the King. MH, did you have anything else, you know, before you want to sign off, man? But yeah, like I said, this was definitely a lesson. We appreciate having you on and just all the work
and I hope to
you're
see
doing.
you at CCon and maybe Gen X's.
Absolutely.
Are you going to be at CCon in Vegas?
Yes, absolutely.
I'll be there.
I'll
be there.
All righty.
Forward
to it. Okay.
Well, go Jackets, and thank you for the time.
Absolutely.
Be blessed.
We want to thank you for taking the time with us. We know it's a little late over there. Thank you for what you're doing, what you're building for our future.
All right. It's you know, here's the good thing. Okay. I don't require a lot of sleep. I don't know why, like 4 to 5 hours a night. That's my whole life.
There it is. I'm on the 4 to 5 hours as well. So,
I don't know if that's healthy, but that's kind of where
Hey, let's not think about it.
That's right. Go Jackets. Thank
there
y'all.
it is. Go Jackets. Thank you so much. And
y'all
everybody,
we want to
thank you for listening. So I hope you enjoyed the show. There was definitely some nuggets in there. So if you love the show, please share the show. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel as we believe visual representation matters. If you see it, you can be it. And as we always say, please stay safe, practice gratitude, and know we're rooting for you.
Screaming, all us blacks got is sports and entertainment until we even.
Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yeah. Yeah. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yo. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Spent about 2 racks on handmade new rags. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. That's everybody from sports to college class to rap.